Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be reviewing the January transfer window and giving each team a grade based on the players they signed. Let's get into it. First up is Bournemouth. They signed 6 players in the window, 1 goalkeeper, 2 center backs, and 3 forwards. The goalkeeper, his last name's Randolph. He used to play for West Ham. He's going to be a third string. His signing's not like a big impactful one. Between the 2 center backs, one has been injured the whole time, and the other guy has played 14 minutes in 2 substitute appearances, so they clearly aren't star players. And the 3 forwards they signed, one of them has 2 assists, and the other 2 have 0 goal contributions. However, they all are pretty young players, under 25-ish, except for the goalkeeper. But Bournemouth are in a relegation battle, and signing players this young, when you need players that are proven and are going to get you out of relegation, is probably not a good move. So, based on how they've done so far in the first month, I'm going to give them a grade of a D. Next up is Arsenal. They signed 3 players in the window, 1 defender, 1 midfielder, and 1 forward. All are going to be backup players. The defender is just going to be backing up for Gabriel. He hasn't played yet at the Premier League. The midfielder, Jorginho, he is a good backup for Partey, as Partey always gets injured, as he already did, and Jorginho has filled in for him. So that was a smart signing to keep their title push alive. And the forward, Trossard, he's a good forward. He can play anywhere across the front 3. He's already filled in for Jesus and Nketiah when they got hurt. So he'd be a good signing. He's already scored a couple goals. I give Arsenal an A. These are exactly the signings they needed to keep pushing for the title. Third team on the list for this window is Aston Villa. They signed 2 players in the window, 1 defender and 1 forward. The forward, Duran, seems like he's just going to be a backup player and substitute forward, which I guess Villa kind of needed. They did sell Danny Ings away, so a backup player is kind of useful. And the defender, Moreno, he's done well, and he's rotating with Digne. They're pretty good left backs, each of them. They didn't really need to spend much because they're solidified in mid-table, so it's better for them to save their money for the summer window and get better players. Window-wise, I think I'd give them a grade of a B. Pretty solid window. They didn't really need to do too much. Our fourth team on the list today is Brentford. They only signed 1 player. He's a forward. He's a backup winger on loan. Honestly, they didn't even need to do too much, although they are pushing for a European spot, so it's kind of disappointing that they only signed a backup player, but I guess it's understandable. They don't really need to fix what ain't broke, right? So, good window. Honestly, grade of a C. Not anything spectacular, but not awful. And the next team up is Brighton. They signed 2 players. Both are center mids. They did need a bit of depth in the midfield, but they're both prospects for the future, so it's not like they spent a lot of money on them. Similar to Brentford, they are pushing for a European spot, and their team's playing well, so they didn't really need to sign too much. They also get a grade of a C. Yeah. And the next team to review is Chelsea, and oh my, what a window. They signed 8 players, 2 defenders, 2 center mids, and 4 forwards. Of the defenders, one of them was instantly loaned back to their team they signed him from, and one of the center mids they couldn't get a work permit for, so he still has to play in Brazil while they solve out that issue. They spent over $300 million, but in 2023 they have just 2 wins in the Premier League and scored a total of 5 goals. They signed a lot of the players on 7 to 8 year contracts, and those could really backfire on them. So the strategy of buy everybody has not seemed to work out, as their team is lacking cohesion because they just have too many players in the squad. I mean, this is a perfect example for a window of what not to do. They just signed everybody and it did not work. They get a grade of an F for having such a terrible window. Next team for me to review is Crystal Palace. They signed 2 players. Both are midfielders. They signed Lakanga on loan from Arsenal, who has played well, and Ahamada, who is a 20-year-old prospect. Similar to Aston Villa, they didn't really need to spend much money this window. They're kind of like solidified mid-table, so they can save their money for the summer transfer window. So I'm going to give them a grade of a B. The center midfielders are good. They kind of need a bit of depth, but didn't need much to do. Everton are the next team for me to review. They signed nobody. This was absolutely terrible decision, as they are battling a relegation battle and they need to change things up, and they signed nobody. They get a grade of an F. Pretty simple grade. Next up for me to review is Fulham. They signed 2 players, a defender and a center mid. The defender is Cedric. He's a backup right back from Arsenal. He's kind of just providing depth. And the midfielder, Lukic, he's a pretty good option. They need depth in midfield, so this is a good window. They are pushing for a spot in Europe. They didn't need to rush any signings. They didn't need any superstars or anything for their starting lineup, so getting some depth options is a pretty good move. I'm going to give them a grade of a B. Pretty solid window. Next up on my list to review is Leeds. They signed 3 players in the window, 1 defender, 1 center mid, and 1 forward. The center mid, McKennie, he's a pretty famous American player. He will fit in their American triangle with Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson in the midfield. He's a pretty good, he's kind of inconsistent, but when he's on his game, he's on his game. I think this is a good loan signing from Leeds. If he ends up playing well and consistent, they can buy him for like $30 million. Their defender, Wober, great job. He's instantly coming at left center back, played well. Their defense, it's kind of improved a little bit. Guess it's thanks to him. He's a good signing, though. Their forward, he's a 20-year-old striker. He's kind of for the future to replace Bamford, although he should probably be starting soon because Bamford has put in some terrible performances. I give him a grade of a C because they're in a relegation battle and the signings haven't seemed to have done too much. Leeds are still fighting this battle. Hopefully it'll turn out well, but I don't know. Grade of a C for now. The team for me to review next is Leicester. They signed 3 players, 2 defenders and a winger. The 2 defenders have come in and become instant starters, but their defense hasn't really improved. And the winger Tete, he scored on his debut, but hasn't had any goal contribution since then. The bottom half of the table, it is really close down there, so there's a lot of teams in the relegation fight, and Leicester are one of them. These signings don't really seem to help them out too much in this battle. I don't know if they're going to stay up, but this definitely won't help them. Grade of a D. Next up is Liverpool. They signed 1 player, a forward, Cody Gakpo. He had a slow start to life at Liverpool, but he's slowly picked up pace recently and done well. He contributed 2 goals to the 7-0 win over United. Liverpool desperately needed a midfielder, though, and they missed out on doing that in the window. However, they're probably going to buy a big name like Jude Bellingham in the summer, so I guess it's okay for them to miss out now. They get a grade of a B. Manchester City, they signed 1 player in the window. He's a midfielder. He's a prospect for the future, and he's going to join them in the summer. Very similar to how they signed Julian Alvarez last year when they signed him in the winter, but that he didn't join the team to the summer. He's also an Argentinian midfielder. City didn't really need to sign anybody. Young prospect for cheap's a good deal. They get a grade of an A. They're going to keep their title push going. Didn't really need anyone to help them do that. Next team up is Man U. They signed 3 players, a backup goalkeeper, a midfielder, and a forward. The forward, Weghorst, hasn't really scored a goal yet, but he's been starting a bunch of matches, although their plan for him isn't really to score goals. He kind of causes chaos in the midfield. And their midfielder, Sabitzer, he's a good loan signing because Christian Eriksen got hurt and he's going to be out for a while, and they definitely need some midfield cover for him. They've already got top 4 kind of secured, and they didn't really need any big signings, so 3 players on loan is a fine job. Grade of an A. Newcastle's the next team up for me to review. They signed 1 player, Anthony Gordon, and he's a forward. He hasn't played a full 90 minutes yet, and he does not have any goal contributions, but there is a lot of competition up front, and he's kind of considered a player for the future because he's only 22. They probably should have gotten some depth in the midfield, and they didn't really need another forward. As I said, they had a lot of competition up there. They've recently faltered in their battle for top 4. They probably should have signed the midfield depth like I mentioned. They get a grade of a D. Not a great window for them. Nottingham's next up on the list. They signed 7 players. 1 goalkeeper, 1 defender, 4 midfielders, and a forward. I'm not going to review each of them because that's way too many players to review. But now they've hit 30 players in the season that they've signed between this window and this summer window. Their goalkeeper, Navas, he's a top goalie and certainly their best signing. I don't know how they managed to pull him off on a loan deal, but that was a great deal for them. They get a grade of a B. We're getting down to the last couple teams, but next up is Southampton. They signed 5 players, 1 defender, 1 midfielder, and 3 forwards. Their midfielder, Alcaraz, has done well. He's the only player of these signings that's really done well. The defender, Bree, has not helped out their defense, and none of the forwards they've signed have a goal contribution. Southampton are probably going to get relegated, and besides Alcaraz, these signings don't like they're really going to help them out, so they get a grade of a D. Not a good window. Spurs is next up. They get 2 signings, 1 defender and 1 forward. Danjuma, the forward they signed on loan, he's a good rotation option for Sun. And Pedro Porro, the defender they signed, he's going to be their future right wing back, but neither has had a solid opportunity to play yet, as Sun and Emerson have stayed in front of them respectively in their pecking order. So we'll see how it goes, but they get a grade of a B. Decent window. Didn't need any major signings probably. Now up is West Ham. They signed 2 players, 1 defender and 1 forward. Besides his 2 goals against Nottingham, Danny Ings, the forward they signed, hasn't changed West Ham's struggles at striker at all this season. and their defender is kind of one for the future. He hasn't played in a game yet. They're, again, one of the many teams in the relegation battle this season. Signings aren't really helping them out. Grade of a D. Notice a pattern among teams in the relegation battle not having good windows. The last team on my list for me to review is Wolves. They signed 6 players, a goalkeeper, a defender, 2 center mids, a winger, and a forward. The goalkeeper is going to be a backup player, so he doesn't really matter too much. Cunha, the forward they signed, he's joined the striker curse at Wolves, and now it has been one full calendar year without a striker scoring a goal for Wolves. Overall, between the 6 signings, they're all pretty good signings for Wolves as they face the relegation, and they're probably going to escape it, honestly, because they had a good window and a lot of the teams did not. I'd give them a good window, grade of an A. Alright, this has been my review of all 20 teams' windows. I hope you liked it. Please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell for notifications. Thank you.